Hey guys, it's Mr. Stark. I wanted to give you a kind of a new and improved video for counters. And counter is, think of something like anything that passes by something and it will count the items. And in this particular instance, we're using the old circuit that I played around with years ago with the garage. So you're going down the city and you're trying to find a parking garage, and it's a basic circuit of how this would actually work. So before I go into it, what I want you to see is the function block for this counter is up here. And if I click on here, and if you scroll down, right there is your basic counter. And you've also got fast counters and high speed counters. I don't know if we'll get to them, but they're very similar in how they function. But in this case, we'll click on the first counter, and as you can see, that's already there. And I would then have that on rung 0. And I'm going to build this circuit piece by piece, but you can kind of see how I added the counter to rung body 0, and I inserted a bunch of open contacts and closed contacts off of the input side of this counter, and the output side of the counter I've got a couple of outputs going on. Let me explain what I actually have on here. I have a reset button, so if I hold my mouse here you can see what these functions work. I have a set button, so we'll get to that in another video. I have a count up, a count down, so if you can imagine cars passing through would count up, cars getting out of the garage would count down. If we go to E, I'm sorry, I lost my mouse, down counter overflow, look at that as if it means that all the cars already left the garage and the garage is empty. You've reached the 0 number, let's say. D, preset reached. So right now I've got a preset of only 5 because it takes a while to click through these. And let's just say my parking garage can only fit 5 people. Well, then my preset would be reached, and my output connected to D would say something like full garage in that case if I hit my preset number of 5. And likewise with E, if everybody left, I would have an empty garage because then I brought my value back down to 0. And once you want to keep in mind, it does count the 0 place, so there's really 6 places instead of 5. And let's get that mouse back again. And F, which I don't have used right now, and I could certainly use it, is my up counter overflow. So let's say I reached the full garage and somebody went past my preset number. I'm gonna eventually show you how we can hook up an alarm to that. That lets me know that we've got more people in there and there's probably double parked somewhere or something. And we've got a couple of interlocks that I've wired in here off of my empty and my done, if you will, which will disallow anybody else going in there. So that's kind of a safety lock. And then further down in the circuit, you can see that I have an M coil, an M bit, memory bit. When my garage is empty, well, I want to make sure that I have an empty light letting me know that there's nobody there, so I've got that tied into that memory bit. And likewise, when my garage becomes full, well, I want to make sure that I have a full light hooked up to that. And it'll also close the gate down here. So once it's full, it closes the gate, doesn't let anybody allow in there. Once it's empty, it allows the gate to open. So there's some cool little pieces and parts to this circuit. And if I simulate it, you can kind of see what's going on here. Let this simulate. We've got to always hit run. There's my run. Yeah, I'm going to start the controller. I'm going to have this wired up in my personal trainer. In a little bit, I'm going to be using limit switches to simulate me counting up. So right now, if you look, as cars come in, maybe I'm going by a sensor and it's initiating that input 0. So I'm going to count and watch the counter count up. So I got to click on off. It's going on to the next one. There's number 2. Unclick it. My limit switch will be better because it'll give that return, that spring return. And so another car is coming through. And I'm going to hit my preset. And notice when I hit 5 cars, I have an output coming out of that counter that says full garage. So right now, what else I have tied in this? Remember, I have a memory bit tied in here. M1 just became true, which means it won't allow any more cars to go in. But also, I've got this contact tied into memory bit number 1. That gives me my full light. And I also have, once my garage is full, I have Q0.1 tied into another contact that closes the gate. So it doesn't allow people just to kind of roam around and get through the gate. That's that piece. Once again, I have this interlock built in series with the up counter. And what that does is if I continue to count up, watch, I'm going to go back down and I'm going to hit my input 0. I'm going to try to count up and watch. It will, see how I'm clicking and the number's not going any higher because it's interlocked. So I'm clicking and it's staying at 5. So it's showing that the interlock is working. The next thing we could do, obviously, since we're at 5, is we can count down. So if I look at my input that's used for counting down, CD, I'm using input 1. So let's count back down. Give me a minute. Click. Click. Cars are leaving. Cars are leaving. And right now, let's get that last one out. Right here. Notice it went to 9,999. Once again, it uses that 0 value as a number. So once I got down there, and I could have 10,000, but for the counter, we'll get to that after. So right now, I reached my everybody left. My garage is empty. I have an empty light that came on because I have memory bit 0 tied into that. And memory bit 0 also comes down here and connects to my empty light. And because I'm empty, my gate is now open for business. So I have an open gate tied into my empty light output contact. And that's basic. We could certainly build more, but this is just a good introduction to counters and how they're used. In another video, we'll use the set function and the full up counter overflow, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. But it's a fun thing, and I'm going to simulate this particular basic circuit on my personal trainer in the next video. So hopefully you enjoyed. And oh, by the way, as far as this video goes, this is not a motor control circuit that I converted, because this function block really allows you to get creative with what you have, and you're kind of building the circuit in your head, which makes it pretty fun, a little more interesting. So that being said, we'll see you at the next video. Thanks.